Willard and Chef step off the boat and walk into the jungle, the heart of darkness, in a scene that would not only symbolize the journey into one's unconscious and the fear of the unknown, but also Francis Ford Coppola's journey into his unknown. And right now, the unknown is how this story will end. In this video, I'll take you through the tiger sequence, how it was shot, the inspirations for its style, and why it's important to this story. And stay tuned to the end of the video, because we're going to talk about Coppola's writing process and why he has begun filming the movie with no end in sight.
Captain, just how far up this river are we going?
It's classified, Chief. I can't tell you.
Terminate. With extreme prejudice. Are you an assassin? A soldier?
This episode is sponsored by Mubi, where you can stream exceptional films from around the globe. Try it free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description. After the Valkyrie sequence ends, Willard and the River Patrol Boat crew finally begin making their way up the Nung River to Kurtz. We start this new section of the movie with Chef, Clean, and Lance sharing a joint, one of the reasons Coppola was refused any support by the US military on the production. They offer some to Willard, who refuses, instead filling his canteen with liquor. This could certainly be read as Coppola implying a strange double standard in the stigma over smoking marijuana versus drinking booze.
I'm not here. I'm walking through the jungle gathering mangoes. I meet Raquel Welch.
Coppola had been telling Freddie Forrest to help him find the character of Chef, quote, "Whenever you don't know who you are, just say, 'Man, I'm not getting off this boat. I'm not here. I'm not really here.'" And this was something Forrest would say throughout the production. Things like, "I'm not really here. I'm in Montana with Jack Nicholson." And keep the reference to Raquel Welch in mind too. We'll talk about this in the next episode. In a part that was cut for the theatrical version, but later put back in for the Redux version, a helicopter flies overhead playing a pre-recorded message from Kilgore, asking for the safe return of his surfboard, which was stolen by Willard.
"Just give me back the board, Lance. It was a good board and I liked it. You know how hard it is to find a board you like."
One thing that's really pronounced here is a white band-aid under Willard's left eye. You can see in these shots, Willard doesn't have it yet, but you can barely make out a small cut on his cheek. This is a real cut. According to Coppola, during one of the takes, Martin Sheen fell on his rifle and cut himself. Coppola just went with it and added the band-aid because that's what they would have done in the situation anyway. After the patrol boat is dropped in the water, the band-aid is on his face. Willard and Chef leave the boat to search for mangoes in the jungle, and Willard asks why they call him Chef.
I'm a real chef. I'm a saucier.
Coppola writes in the margins of the script, "Is Willard starting to feel the need to know his men personally? Maybe he knows they will die on this mission." This idea is more developed in the Redux version. Just before this, in an exchange that was cut from the theatrical version, the crew asks Willard how dangerous their journey is going to be.
Is it gonna be hairy? I don't know, kid. Yeah, probably.
The crew isn't like Willard. They all have lives they want to get back to.
Maybe get a chance to know what the fuck you are in some factory in Ohio.
It seems Willard sort of sympathizes with the crew after this, and goes mango hunting with Chef to get to know him better.
Then I was supposed to go to Paris, study to Scoffier school. Then I got orders for this.
This sequence was filmed pretty early in the production. It was just after shooting the Valkyrie sequence, mid-May of 1976. Coppola wanted to get into the jungle early, to let the actors get a feel for the Vietnam War and the heart of darkness. Coppola said, "The real phenomenon of being in that situation, of being in the middle of that jungle, dealing with all the unfriendly elements, was part of what Vietnam was about. That was the first directorial decision, to put us all in a circumstance that reflected, what the movie was all about." When they went out to shoot this sequence, they came across this amazing tree, and Coppola was blown away by its size and look. Cinematographer Vittorio Storaro, putting his philosophy of color into practice, decided that this should be a blue sequence, enhanced by the blue bucket. This color philosophy meshed well with Coppola's desire to add more surrealism to the movie. Coppola, quote, "wanted Kurtz and Willard to be separated by a thin line." Milius' script had Kurtz's army having mastered the jungle, and becoming transformed into killing machines by it, but Coppola wanted the jungle to be an evil monster, killing or driving insane those who enter it. We see this concept for the first time in this scene. Chef and Willard have unknowingly ventured into the heart of darkness for something as simple and innocent as mangoes. Coppola and Storaro wanted the jungle to have a surreal look to it as well. Storaro was inspired by the Tarzan comic books of the late 1930s, illustrated by the incredible Burn Hogarth. Storaro said, "In 1972, just before we began working on Apocalypse, Hogarth had published 2 new books of his Tarzan art, Tarzan of the Apes and the Jungle Tales of Tarzan, and they really focus on the principles of movement. I showed them to Francis during our early meetings. I told him that I wanted to portray the jungle in a similar way, with very aggressive colors. I didn't want the color of the jungle to be a naturalistic color. Just look at how different the colors look from how they shot it."
I was asking to myself how I can represent this journey into our unconscious. And so I thought that maybe the only way is to represent the same structure of our own life with the structure of the light itself. So the journey into ourself that Willard is doing is the journey that I could do within the color spectrum, starting from the beginning to end into light that represents life.
An example would be that black represents the unconscious, and through it, the heart of darkness. Green is the process of knowing, and blue is our intelligence as humans. Part of the effect came from Storaro using filters to get the bright green leaves against the dark blue trees.
Here I saw a film in which the cinematography really joined forces with the director's work to do something that in many cases was extremely illogical, where the camera participated in the action almost as a character would, and it worked very beautifully.
Throughout most of the movie, Willard is a passive character, always looking, and we are watching like Willard. Often the camera is Willard. Storaro said, "The silhouettes were also inspired by the French native painter Henri Rousseau. He did some paintings set in the jungle that had very aggressive colors, and in one that I remember, there was a man in silhouette with a woman and tiger behind him. Willard hears something, and they stop to investigate. We hear the faint booms and thuds of explosions going off in the distance. Editor Walter Murch heard from soldiers that they could always hear low artillery in the distance while in Vietnam, so they decided to put the sound off in the distance to mimic the sound of a heartbeat as the suspense builds. Murch said, "What's interesting when you're working with image and sound is to stretch the content of what you're looking at to the breaking point. In the case of the tiger scene, we stretched it to the point where nothing that you're looking at has anything to do with what you're hearing. Under these circumstances, people tend not to hear sound consciously, but they process it nevertheless, and it has the effect of a heartbeat. If you stop the film and asked, 'What's that sound?' people would come to a certain level of consciousness and say, 'Oh, it must be distant artillery,' but they don't. The sound operates at this subconscious level." In Milius' 1969 draft of the script, he writes, "A few yards from them, they hear something move. It is obviously no small jungle creature. In the margins," Coppola writes, "let the audience feel sure it's a Viet Cong. Then, as the tiger springs from its hiding place, give it the old Roger Corman shock. Ferocious face of a tiger." Coppola continues, "The men shooting should be wild, uncontrolled. They don't hit anything." Storaro said, "The tiger is a symbol of nature, an unconscious fear. You do not recognize the face of your enemy because the real enemy is yourself, the darkness within you. When Freddy Forrest runs away from the tiger, he emits the unconscious fear of the unknown." On May 10, 1976, Eleanor Coppola wrote in her diary, "Mona, an associate producer, told me that yesterday the tiger that will be used in the scene arrived from LA. It had been in a crate for 30 hours, and the handlers were very concerned about it. They took it to the studio and let it out in the wardrobe room. It was lying down suffering from jet lag. It perked up at lunchtime and ate 4 chickens and a 10-pound roast. In the afternoon, they took it out to the airport to put it on a DC-3 to Baylor. The crate wouldn't fit through the door of the plane, so they walked the tiger on like a passenger. Once the pilot got on the plane, he freaked out and climbed out onto the wing, refusing to take off. The passengers rode in the front compartment of the plane, and the pilot finally got back on once the tiger was docile."
We had this guy there with the tiger, a couple. the trainers. And he had like a slight speech impediment with his scar tissue like all over his face, where he'd been had to bounce with the tiger, Gamby.
Stunt coordinator Terry Leonard baited Gamby the tiger into the shot by holding a squealing pig attached to a rope, and then when Gamby lunged for the pig, he would throw the pig in a box so that Gamby couldn't eat it. Coppola kept telling Freddie Forrest to get closer, and he would respond, "You get closer, Francis. You get closer." When the tiger lunged, everybody freaked out. Emilio, the focus puller, actually climbed up a tree. According to Coppola, in one of the takes, Gamby managed to get the pig and drag it into the jungle, and it took them hours to find them. Forrest said, "To me, that was the essence of the whole film in Vietnam. That look in the tiger's eyes, the madness. It didn't matter what you wanted. There was no reality anymore. If that tiger wanted you, you were his." Coppola was told that sometime later, Gamby did end up killing someone and was euthanized.
I've had the whole goddamn fucking shit, man! You can kiss my ass in the county square because I fucking out!
This part back on the boat was filmed almost a year later. One of the lines that always had a strong effect on me is when Chef says,
All I want to do is fucking cook! I just want to learn to fucking cook, man!
These men's lives were disrupted and even ended for what? They aren't like Willard or Kilgore or Kurtz. Their hearts are not in this. And this is followed by one of the most essential lines in the movie.
Never get out of the boat. Absolutely goddamn right. Unless you were going all the way.
Do not enter the heart of darkness unless you're willing to completely give yourself over to it.
Kurtz got off the boat. He split from the whole fucking program.
Willard dives back into the Kurtz dossier. We talked about the creation of the dossier near the end of episode 8, but I want to encourage you to check out Adam Savage's video on his incredible reproduction of the Kurtz dossier on the Tested YouTube channel. You can find a link in the description. It's interesting to realize that the tiger sequence could also be seen as a metaphor for this stage of the production. This scene, filmed near the beginning of the production, represents the beginning of both Willard and Coppola's journey into the unknown, their own heart of darkness. Despite wanting to scrap screenwriter John Milius' original victorious ending, depicting Willard and Kurtz teaming up to fight a US helicopter attack, Francis Ford Coppola didn't have a different ending in mind, but he figured he could write a new ending, while they were already filming the movie.
And it was a co-writer of the script. He could create things at the moment, and if a new idea came up, he would, stay up all night and write it.
Coppola, being a masterful screenwriter himself, could rewrite scenes on the fly during production. But Coppola had always planned on this, expecting to incorporate things that happened during the shoot into the final film. And this wouldn't just be rewriting a scene because of unexpected weather either. He wanted the movie to reflect his experience making it.
And your own experience during the making of it was also a very strong element, and that somehow the director works with more than just having the script and having the team of people and actors, that also the conditions and the mood of the company and of each individual and what personally people are going through is also one of the primary elements of the film.
In an interview from much later by Nowness, Coppola described his writing process, saying that in all the aspects of filmmaking, he is least confident in his ability to write. And this is coming from a guy who won an Academy Award for screenwriting with one of his earliest scripts.
Francis Ford Coppola and Edmund H. Norfolk Patton!
He described his writing as like having a big ball of dough that is his life experiences, ideas, interests, dreams, and observations, and he will take some of it and make something out of it, and take some more and make something else. He says that an idea doesn't have to be developed, it can just be a seed. When he's ready, he'll work on it every day, usually in the morning, and when he has about 60 to 70 pages, he'll read it and rewrite it as a short story. This way he can put more aspects into it that you can't do in a screenplay, that better helps him understand what he wants to communicate in the movie. He'll show it to his colleagues as a short story, and then they talk about actors and go look at locations and write down ideas. Then he can finally write the screenplay using the details of the short story and incorporate what is unique about the actors and locations.
Yeah, just be natural. Good. Michael and Kay.
He's a very scary guy.
Well, who is he? What's his name?
His name is Luca Brasi. It helps my father out sometimes.
One thing he finds that helps is to just write the ending so that he knows where he's going. But in the case of Apocalypse Now, they were already deep into production without an ending. Imagine the guts or lunacy you would have to put all of your money into a story that doesn't yet have an ending. And yet he was in the production with no end in sight. And finding the right ending would require Coppola to take his own journey into the heart of darkness. On the next episode of Making Apocalypse Now, the patrol boat comes across a strange Playboy stage show shining like a beacon in the middle of the dark jungle, in another surreal sequence inspired by Homer's The Odyssey. Check out this episode's $1 companion PDF, where we dive deeper into Vittorio Storaro's color theory and a selection of interesting comments from the previous episode. Or you can get access to all of the companion PDFs I've made for this series by joining my $5 tier on Patreon. I'd like to take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, Mubi. Mubi is a place to discover incredible cinema, where every film on the platform is handpicked by their team of curators. Mubi features everything from retrospectives and curated film programs to exclusives and never-before-streamed film premieres. You can log in from anywhere, and it's like you've arrived at your own personal film festival. They even have a print magazine called Notebook, with tons of great contributors and retro finds. You can learn more about Notebook at mubi.com/magazine. We recently lost one of my favorite directors, French New Wave pioneer Jean-Luc Godard. For the month of November, Mubi is hosting a month-long celebration of his work. You can also stream the cult TV series from the 90s, The Kingdom by Lars von Trier. A long-anticipated third season, The Kingdom Exodus, will premiere exclusively on Mubi starting in late November. All of this and much, much more are available right now on Mubi. Try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/CinemaTyler. That's mubi.com/CinemaTyler for a whole month of great cinema for free. Or join CinemaTyler on Patreon at the $5 level and get extended access to Mubi as a perk.